Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this month's Human Rights Heroes podcast. I'm Corey Andrews, the spokesperson for the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor at the U.S. Department of State. Today, I am pleased to welcome Mike Okwoche, a journalist from Nigeria. Mike is a news reporter and the senior anchor at TV Continental in Lagos. He has produced several high-profile documentaries for local and international organizations with a focus on the socio-political climate, current events, and rights of children in Nigeria. In addition to news reporting, Mike anchors a number of TV programs, including Africa Today, which focuses on expert analysis and in-depth reporting of Africa's dynamic socio-political and economic landscapes. Mike is here for a 3-week international visitor leadership program sponsored by the Department of State to learn more about the role of the media in supporting democratic institutions and promoting community development. Mike, I'm so pleased that you were able to join us today. And I actually wanted to start by hearing about your experience as a journalist in Nigeria. How'd you get started?
Well, thank you, Curry. It's an honor being here in the first place. Now, I didn't really plan to go into media originally.
Who did, right?
Oh, well, it was just accidental, let me say. You know, after university, I was just waiting to get a job, that dream job every young person always looks forward to. And it wasn't coming, and I decided, okay, let me go into teaching. So I went into teaching in a secondary school until the Senate president at that time in Nigeria was coming up with a radio station. And I decided to go check out, what they have. And I used to be a singer in the university, so I had this very strong voice.
We won't make you sing anything today. Don't worry.
So going in just for an audition, they were attracted by my voice. I'm like, wow, that's a radio voice, and I like that. And on that ground, that was how I got in. And the first 1, 2, 3 weeks, I didn't really know about media, so it was hard getting into it. But after I sent on a few reports out there, I had to get supervision, and I had to ask questions. I said, how do I write this story? How do I get this? How do I get? So I got help from all those who were experienced on the job and so on. But after about 1 month, I started writing my own stories about how things are going, and then the tone of how to write a story, it was sinking in. I was learning gradually. But after about 3 months, it started dawning on me that I think I can go into the media proper, into corresponding, into reporting, into journalism proper. It was from there the idea started sinking in, and then until from there I went to do my youth service in Benin, in the south of Nigeria. And during my youth service, my compulsory 1-year youth service, I was given an employment letter even before I finished, because I felt what this guy is doing it differently. He's a youth copper, but he's very diligent, and the professionalism and all of that, because I was just just doing the best I can and all of that. But cutting that short, what journalists go through in Nigeria to bring out stories sometimes is close to miracle. Because sometimes you're not originally, officially trained to be a journalist. You learn on the job. Then number 2, the equipment and what it takes to come out. All the computers, all the gadgets you're supposed to use, sometimes they're not available. You see so many journalists in Nigeria going out with their phones. You have to record here, you have to record there, but just bring home something, tie a story to it, and then it becomes your story and so on. But now things are changing gradually. The past few years, things are changing because many organizations are coming up and they are deliberately sending their journalists on training, just to bring up something else, an edge to what was on ground before and all of that. So it is changing gradually. So media or journalism in Nigeria is becoming more robust, because from the north to the south, many organizations coming up feel that we have all the CNNs and we have all the Foxes, we have all the big TV stations out there. We want to be like them. So we want to be the CNN in Nigeria, we want to be the CNN in Africa and all of that. So they try to follow, what are these people doing? How can we do that to get this attention? How can we do that to get, this kind of coverages and all of that? So it becomes the way that new media or new media stations in Nigeria come up, and it becomes a benchmark. And so I must say kudos to CNN and all the big BBCs and all of that, because there's a lot of following of how they're doing things back in Africa and back in Nigeria.
Sure. And you mentioned that the work that journalists do is, is often miraculous, that they're able to get out the stories that they do. And one of the things that we have observed is a steady increase in threats of violence against the media and against media professionals. Journalists are often targeted just for doing their jobs and reporting the news. What resources do you think journalists most need in order to better their protection or better their, the way they're able to do their jobs in a safe way?
Well, I think the government has a lot to do in here, and the people also have a lot to do in here. The enlightenment is not so much, because sometimes as a journalist, I go out to record maybe a story or something, and because they see me with a camera, you see folks coming out to say, okay, fine, you're coming to record here, you have to pay us. If you don't pay, you can't get a story. But back in your office, they're waiting for you to file in a story. So sometimes you have to part with money. And if you don't have all the monies to part with because you're considering so many things, you have a family to think about and to take care of and all of that. And then sometimes you might go into some rough engagement with them. And then if you do a story, in Nigeria, for instance, there's a lot of influence of people who are very powerful. You do a story, sometimes there's a lot of pressure as to, no, I don't want that story to take that tone. And they want to force you to, tilt it in a certain way. And if you say, no, my profession says I have to be objective and all of that, you're running against someone who is powerful. So you have all these interferences from here and there. So government, on the other hand, has to be able to create an enabling environment where if I am a journalist and I go out and anybody attacks me, I should be able to sue such kind of person. And the institution has to protect me. And then on the other hand, the people themselves, although that's going to take a longer time, because for people to get aware, to know, okay, fine, journalists are coming here with cameras and with all of that to record, we have to be able to, they are telling our stories, they are our representatives. So we have to give them that open hand and that freedom and even the protection. It's going to take a longer time, but there has to be conscious awareness, creation, civic education and all of that for the people to know that journalists, they're not the people with all the monies. They're just there to help tell the stories. So it comes from both sides, the government and then the people.
So that's the space that needs to exist for a free media, right? But what does a free media mean to you?
A free media to me means a lot of things, but I think...
Keep it to a couple.
But I will narrow it down. A free media should be, in my mind, in my opinion, if I have a story and I want to publish the story, whether if it's about the Minister of Information, or it's about the Vice President, or it's about the biggest businessman in the country, I should feel free to write the story without any kind of interference. That is when I would feel that media is free. Not when I get phone calls, and then sometimes the head of your station, I'm getting calls from the presidency and they don't want this story, take it down and all of that. No, that shouldn't be it. Because the point there is we are guided by the ethics of the profession, and we've gone for all the many of the trainings and all of that. So we should be able to put all the things we've learned into practice. And that is when the media will be free in our minds, where your story goes out there exactly the way, based on the facts, based on all the information you've gathered. Let it go out there without any interference, because the freedom of the media, or the other side of it, most of it comes from the government side of things, where there's so much pressure, especially in African countries. There's so much pressure on I don't want that story to come that way, I don't want the story to come out that way and all of that. There shouldn't be government in all of those.
Well, Mike, I want to thank you for joining us today, and I hope that in your visit to the United States, you learn some practices that you can take home with you.
Thank you, Kari.
And to our listeners, thanks again for listening to this episode of Human Rights Heroes. We hope you will tune in again next month and follow us on Facebook at state_DRL and on Twitter at StateDRL to learn more about the State Department's Human Rights and Democracy programs.